disappointed to find out that we were no longer number one. But it is heartening to be out on the road at exams and talking to candidates and whatever who keep looking and they keep looking and they're saying, "Were you the one on the video?" But have expressed really how helpful that these sessions have been for them, and that's exactly why we do them.
Yes.
We hope that they are help. We hope that it's an adjunct support for the manual. And I'll say it now and get it over with.
Okay.
He has to realize this is not instead of or to replace the manual or the candidate guide, but it's to give you just some kind of inside information or a little bit more of an explanation about the exam. And we say it over and over again, and I think probably other people have told it to you too. But we enjoy doing this. We enjoy giving you the information, and glad that you have tuned in and are taking part in this.
Yes, and we also know, Pat, some programs actually show this video as part of the course participation. So who knows where we're going to show up across the country, whether this is your visit on YouTube or you're watching this in the classroom. Pat and I are thrilled that you're joining us.
Absolutely. And we're being good sports about being number 2 on the lineup.
Because number 1 is still hygiene. I mean, let's just be honest. Number 1 video is still a dental hygiene video. So for that, Pat and I, big high five.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, okay, Pat, I'll begin here. I'll start on portability. The map that you're seeing here in front of you now, every state that is purple accepts the ADEX exam as the clinical requirement for licensure. So most states have multiple requirements. One is typically your national board. That is separate entity than what we're talking about today. Your ADEX exam, which meets the clinical requirement. This map is the indication of all the places once successfully completed this clinical component you can move to. And then usually a laws and rules exam. Each state likes to make sure you know the laws of those states because it does vary across the country. So what Pat and I are talking about today is your ADEX examination that is administered by one of the longest names, CDCA Rep CETA. That is the testing organization and the friendly faces that Pat and I and all examiners are coming with to deliver that ADEX exam.
And just to give people a little bit of a history is that this is our 2025 was now our 6th year in giving a non-patient exam on typodons. And in June of 2020, there wasn't a purple state on that map. So this is how far that we have come in the last 6 years, but actually 5 years. Last year, we pretty much had the same. So it's been a great effort. It's been warmly received. And it is basically with all but 2 states, you have to call it a national exam. It is what people are choosing to give them the most and the best portability to go where they need to go to and where they want to go to. And
Pat, the one thing I want to, the purple map, you're talking of simulation, the simulated patient portability. Is that what you mean? Yeah, because there was portability in patient as well.
No, absolutely. But this being the simulated, because simulated exam is only, this is only the 6th year we will be giving it. So we had to start all over for acceptability for a brand new exam, a non-patient exam. So this particular map just was in its infancy in 2020 and has grown to be complete.
Yeah, it's exciting. It is exciting, and it was. Well, we won't go into why we got here because that was no fun. But here we are, simulation, which is definitely a benefit to the candidate to have this standardized examination. I tell students often, you don't know the trauma that some students would report when they had to go find the patient and all of the goods. Now that is all provided to you in this simulated patient exam. Pat, don't you remember that?
I remember trying to find a patient, and I remember hoping that they were going to show up, and I remember hoping that their blood pressure was going to be okay, and all of those things. And you just didn't know. It was like a crapshoot until you finally got that patient back and they had been accepted. So the drama and I think the most nerve-wracking part about taking the exam is eliminated.
Yep.
With a non-patient exam.
Yeah. So really quick, one of those things I want to cover before we get, Pat's going to really go into a lot of the details. I'm going to get some of this beginning portion out of the way. So we've talked about portability. Now we're going to talk about the cost of the exam. So that as Pat goes through the components, you realize that both components that Pat's going to cover are all included in the exam cost of $11.50. So the OSCE and the clinical component are together in the examination. And when you go to sign up for your examination, you will see that these are already together for you. The system is going to know what school, when you've told us what school you go to, and when you graduate. And from there, if you're a student, a current student of record, it will walk you through the process automatically. If you are signing up and not a current student, you will be able to choose an exam location that is accepting candidates that are not students of record, but we consider outside candidates, those who either are not in school or not going to school currently at this program. Again, exam cost is $11.50. Some schools and sites, we call them test sites, do have a facility fee that is incorporated. So you will see your $11.50. If there is a facility fee, we do collect it for your convenience. And then that is then passed on to the school. So we try to make it as simple as possible in most scenarios. Pat, as you know, and I know you're getting ready to talk about that, but the manuals and facility fee information will guide each site as far as what expectations are. So if we didn't collect the facility fee, you should still check your site information page to confirm that there isn't something more, that this school isn't collecting it, because some sites do collect that facility fee still on site. So you should know, you should be aware of that, whatever site you're going to.
Yeah, and those just one thing, and then we'll let it go about those site information sheets. If you are a guest going to any outside site, please look those up and read the information that's on it. It's invaluable. It tells you about the clinic and what their equipment is and what you need for connections and where you're going to park and what they're going to provide for you for disposables. There's so much information on those sheets that you should really go and look up. It's on this, you find it through the schedule on the website, but everybody who's taking an exam at a site should read that site information sheet. There's a lot of information, good information on it.
Yep. And then the only other thing about fees to cover, Pat, is the complimentary retake. We do offer, you have 3 attempts, which Pat will go over, 3 attempts on the clinical component and 3 attempts on the OSCE. From the clinical component, that second attempt, if you need it, and Pat and I are hoping because you're spending your time here with us today, you will not need it, but if you do, it's there. It is a complimentary second retake. What is not included in that complimentary retake, though, is the typodont itself. So there is a $150 typodont fee that we will collect when you register for that retake, but you are not paying a full examination fee on that second attempt.
And just to make it clear, so that everybody does understand, Shana, the complimentary retake is for, we say that the ADEX exam is 2 parts. What part is covered by the complimentary retake fee?
Yeah, so the complimentary retake is the clinical component only. If you do need a second attempt on the OSCE, you do, and you see that retake fee here, you do come back and register for that OSCE. There is no complimentary element to the clinic, to the computerized portion, like there is the clinical exam.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody was clear about that.
Yep.
And
so
as
Pat,
Shana said, we're hoping that you don't need any of
that's
those.
right. You're spending your time here with us today. So let's just say that is not going to be necessary. But if you do, it's here and it's built in. And it's also no reason to panic. If you need it, you've got 3 attempts on both.
Right.
So Pat, I'm going to hand it over to you. Now, can we get into this exam and the components, what we're going to be looking at as we move forward?
Okay, so the ADEX dental hygiene exam does have two components that make up the exam. So you don't just take one or the other, you must successfully complete both. So the computer simulated clinical exam is one that has been named everything. It's been the computer exam, the written exam, the Prometric exam. But it is our computer simulated. It did start out on paper. It was written. It was then to a computer. It is now at Prometric. So they're all correct. But it is our computer simulated exam, which is held at a Prometric, and our clinical exam, which is when you're actually treating the typodont. We have manuals for both components, for the OSCE, the CSCE, and for the patient simulated. They're not long. It's not a heavy read. It's not a big effort. Please do read these. We said that we're giving you information, but there's a lot of little tidbits of information, really subtle information that you'll pick up by reading through these manuals. They're only a few pages each and well worth your time. So let's start with the ADEX simulated clinical exam, the CSCE, the OSCE. This is the one that is taken at a Prometric center. It is clinically focused, but it is simulated. You're not doing it with a typodont or a patient. The content of the OSCE exam, or the CSCE, is right here in front of you. It is determined by surveying practicing hygienists, asking what they do, how often they do it, and how important it is. They give us that information, and that's what we test you on. So this is the result of that occupational analysis. It's worth 100 points. Doing the easy math, 12% medical dental assessment basically tells you that of the 100 points that are or scoring opportunities for this exam, there's 12 of them in that field of medical and dental assessment. Intra and extra oral assessment is a lot more, that's 27%. And you can read them down, I don't have to read them for you, but this is approximately how many points on this exam are dedicated to that particular topic. There are some questions that have multiple points, and there are some questions that have single points. There are four basic question styles that we use, and here's some examples of them. An image based up in the upper left, that would be a multiple choice. It would show you something, and then there would be a multiple choice, and you would decide what it is that you're looking at on these slides. In this exam, clinically focused, you'll always be looking at some type of a slide, a clinical slide, a case study, a chart, something clinically related, a radiograph, and you'll be answering questions about that. Underneath it is a drag and drop. This is one here is particular for diagnosis and treatment planning. It just has a list of conditions, and it has the boxes, is it present or is it not present? And you just go and look at that slide and determine what the condition is, and you slide it into the appropriate box. So it's very interactive, and it tests at a higher level than just a standard multiple choice test. Top right, an extended match. This is often used with case presentations, dental hygiene care planning. And in the old days, a match might have been just one straight line going across. But if you look at those figures, those icons at the bottom, you can see that with a yellow highlighted one, well, that maybe there's one direct match from the top left to the bottom right. But you can also see as you go along that there's other combinations too. So it's not just one way of matching. It's more comprehensive, and it picks up everything that would match on this particular slide. I think one of the more popular ones is the hotspot. When you look at it, this is what would be showed. This particular one is for radiographic imaging. What the candidate would see is the darker. What we can see here in this slide is the purple, and you can see the green octagon, and that's the cursor. So this particular question is asking to identify where there's caries. You would drag that green octagon down and cover the area of caries. And as long as you do fit in that is, you don't fit in it, but your octagon fits in.
If they clicked in it, if they've clicked in that space, Pat,
They would click it. Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. You click in it, and anyway, so that shows your answer. So these questions are just not read the multiple choice and pick the answer. They're very interactive. As I said, they tested a different level. There's more than one correct answer. And it's just very participatory. I'm not going to say taking an exam is fun, but this is much more interactive and more interesting than just taking a basic a just a basic multiple choice test. Again, there's 100 points. The pass rate for this is 75. And you find your results out at the end when you finish and you hit your submit or complete or whatever the button says that you submit when you're all finished. At however much time you have, 2 hours, you don't need to take it, but you will get your results immediately. So that's the CSCE.
That's what I was going to ask you, Pat. We've got, just to reiterate, they've got 2 hours to complete it.
They have
And
2
they're
hours.
going to see how many questions they have on the screen. So on their screen, they'll have time and number of questions remaining.
And there's a very good, before you start the exam, there's a really good tutorial on how to use the software and how to use the program. You can skip items. You can go back to them. You can star them to go back to them. And take your time and make sure that you do that. And understand how to work the software. But it's very friendly, it's very user-friendly, it's very intuitive, and it does allow you to not waste time, to go ahead. It tells you how many you have left. And it's something that you schedule when you're ready to take it. Some people think, oh, you have to take it before you take your clinical, or you should be taking it right after. Not true. Once you register to take this examination, you are then eligible, and a very easy process, which Shane is going to show you right here, to schedule your Prometric session. You take it when you're ready, you take it where you want it and when you want it. I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice. There are a lot of professions that do use testing centers, and Prometric is a very popular one. Have some foresight. Just don't say, okay, on Friday, I'm ready, I want to take it next week. That might not be able to happen in the spring when so many professions, nurses and physical therapists, a lot of people do use Prometric. So look ahead, schedule a time that you think that you're going to be ready, and schedule that time. You can always change it and cancel it if you're not. Be cautious and make sure you follow the cancellation policies so that your fees are taken care of. But it's something that you do yourself, and Shane is going to show you how easy it is to schedule that Prometric appointment. Remember, you can schedule it, you can cancel it, you can change it. You have to just stay on top of what the requirements are. So Shana, show them how easy it is to schedule a Prometric exam.
Yeah, and we're only covering this because this does seem to get a little bit confusing. As I mentioned, when you pay for the exam, the components come together already. The ADEX exam is the 2 parts, and it's $11.50. So you've gone through that registration process. Once you have made payment, this green button that you see replicated here on your screen is where you click to then go make that appointment through Prometric. It takes you outside of your profile to then have you make that appointment. And then once you're finished, it can bring you right back to your profile, and then you'll see your appointment time that you had scheduled within your own personal profile that you've made. So don't ignore that green button. You don't have to go hit register and try. And if you think you're paying for the exam again, no, you've gone in the wrong direction. This green button is your pathway to scheduling that OSCE.
Oh yeah, the one thing that I wanted to add to the OSCE conversation is, remember, this is an entry-level clinical examination. How do you prepare for it? If you're in school, you prepare for it by going to clinic and treating patients or working on typodonts, whatever you're doing. That's how you prepare for it. Remember the source, practicing hygienists, what they do in clinic. They've told us that's what the exam is. What you're learning in school is what you're going to be doing in practice. If you are in practice, it's what you're already doing. So that's how you prepare for it. It is all clinical. It's entry level. It does have a good pass rate. And it's and just remember that it's not tricky. It's basic information that every practicing hygienist really should know. Check out the section in the manual about the ID that you need to bring. It's different than the ID that you bring to the clinical examination. So that's everything I have to say about the CSCE, the little tips and hints. But remember, it is entry level. And it is clinical, and it is designed to follow what is the important aspects of most important aspects of treating a patient. And that's what you're doing every day. All right.
So
let's
Pat,
get into the
going
clinical.
to simulated? Yeah.
So the clinical exam, again, you may be taking this first, or you may be taking it after you've taken your OSCE, but you will be signing up. You'll select the site that you're going to be taking it in. You'll be getting your schedule in the mail email a few weeks before your appointed time. And this is what you're going to be taking your exam on. This is your patient, the Simpro DH. It is unique in that we use the maxillary arch for calculus detection, and we use the mandibular arch for calculus removal. So this is a typodont that has been, I would say, perfected over the years, and it's a great product. It's a great simulated product. And I'm always asking candidates when they leave, what did you think? What did you think of the calculus? What did you think of the teeth? And it gets good reviews from the users. So that's it. Assume the patient be treated. Okay, again, I say this is your patient. It is a simulated patient, but you must treat it as if it were a patient. You're going to be putting it on the chair, in the head. You're going to be treating it positionally as if it was a patient, and using the infection control. Ultrasonic scaling is allowed if the school permits. It is allowed on these typodonts. Remember, this is not enamel. The tissue and the teeth are great simulation. But they're not as hard. And so take that into consideration when you're selecting your power levels and how you're using ultrasonic scaling. The majority of candidates use ultrasonic scaling and use it very successfully. There's plenty of room for instrumentation to get into the sulcus area and whatever. So enough about ultrasonics. It is allowable. 2 hours of treatment time, that is what you have. You don't have to take the 2 hours, but 2 hours is allotted. We have what we call a uniform start, where everybody will be checked in by the clinic floor examiners, and then everybody will be starting the examination at the same time. There will be a session finish time. You may finish early, and that's okay. You can finish early and check out, or you may take the 2 hours. That's okay. We see both at every exam. Some people finish early, some people go to the end. Whatever it is, it's your exam, it's your day. You take the time that you need, but you have 2 hours. We do not evaluate polishing. It isn't performed, and it isn't evaluated on the simulated exam. We will be evaluating hard and soft tissue. That's going to be, we'll talk about that in a few minutes and how it's done. It's done at the end of the examination. Infection control is at a minimum requires your PPE for yourself, your masks, your gloves, your eye protection, and your gown. Please don't forget your own eye protection. The site usually will provide your masks, your gloves, and your gown, but you must have your own eye protection. So please don't forget that. You may not take the exam without it. There are some other infection control measures that we'll be talking about in just a little bit that maybe are different than at a patient exam, but your own personal PPE mirrors a patient exam. I already talked about the administrative format is a uniform start. As I said, everybody will start at the same time, and people will finish as they do finish up. The examination schedule is published, will be sent to you. The exam may be all in one day, it may be on multiple days. So when you get your schedule, make sure you check to see what day you're scheduled for and what time, what group, A, B, or C. We do have 3 sessions per day, Some sites have up to 2, maybe 3 days of examinations. So that's important that you find out. Whatever time it says on that, be there at least a half hour early, I'd say, because if it says 7:30, that's the time you're walking through the door. And you need to have some information before that. This is the one form that is used in the clinical examination. It's called the ACF form. It's your assignment and your clinical findings. It comes pre-populated. It will be either given to you at check-in or it's going to be at your operatory. It tells you everything that you're going to be doing for this exam. Again, you can see, okay, here we go. So first is calculus detection. Each candidate will be assigned according to a version. If you look up in the right-hand corner, it says LR, lower right, and then version A. So version A is going to be assigned a particular 4 teeth for calculus detection, and they will be exploring and indicating whether there is subgingival calculus present on those 4 surfaces: distal, facial, mesial, lingual. So it's 4 teeth. You're determining it on 4 surfaces. That math is easy. It's worth 16 points. Calculus detection it's on the maxilla. Don't bring any other instruments up there other than an Explorer. It's 3D printed calculus. You're not going to get it off, and it's just that particular arch is calculus detection teeth. The calculus is placed on areas of the mouth that the calculus would normally be found on a patient. It's meant to be direct. It's a definite bump or click. We're not looking for rough surfaces to be considered calculus. It is definitely something that you must feel tactily with your Explorer. So there should be an answer to each one of those questions. For each tooth and each surface, answer yes, subgingival calculus is present, or no, subgingival calculus is not present. So that is the calculus detection part of the exam. You write your findings.
I have a couple questions here. So am I marking this with my pencil that I've brought? Are there rules about marking yes or no? Is my first question.
Okay. First, let me start off with, this is your worksheet. So you can use pen, pencil, whatever you want to use. And just make sure you can erase, you can cross out. The most important thing is that you can read it, because when you meet with us as your examiners, will be reading your findings out to us, and we're going to be entering them into the tablet in the electronic grading system. So it is your worksheet. You can use paper, you can use pencil, you can use paper, you can use smiley faces, you can use whatever, but do indicate a yes or a no for each response. Don't leave it blank. If there's calculus there, write yes. If there isn't, write no. That answer your question?
That does answer that question. The other question that always comes up here as they look at the surfaces is, it appears that our form is missing any line angles. What should I do if I do feel clickable calculus on a line angle?
Okay, as in most charting procedures, if you do find calculus on a line angle, it is usually recorded on the proximal surface. So if you find calculus on the distal line angle, the distal facial line angle, you would mark it on the distal. Again, this exam is not meant to trick you, and that's not one of the ways that people are going to be going, and is just trying to trick you on a line angle. That's just common charting practice, that whenever anything is on a line angle, whether it be tissue damage, whether it be calculus, record it on the proximal surface.
That covers it for me.
Okay. Your assignment is easy. You will be given an entire quadrant to scale. It's either going to be the lower right or it's going to be the lower left. And there are 5 different versions of the exam. So everybody that is scaling the lower right are not scaling this. Everybody is scaling every tooth and every surface on every tooth in the lower right. So yes, everybody is scaling the same teeth, but the point weighting is different on different teeth. in the different versions. So what is for you going to be a surface that is worth 5.5 points, and you're taking version A. For someone who's taken version C, it might not be those same surfaces that have that same point worth. So just best advice is you'll be assigned a quadrant. No matter what version you're assigned, consider every surface of every tooth in that quadrant one of the surfaces that's going to be worth a lot of points. They're all going to be worth points. The numbers of points vary, but just treat them all as if they are the 5.5 points value, and you should be good.
Now, Pat, can I choose which quadrant I would like to work on?
That would be very democratic if you could, but no, you can't. We'll be telling you. You will be receiving a typodont, and you'll be receiving one of these ACF forms. You can see the top of this is purple, the lower right. That means that your assignment is lower right. You got the purple form. You're getting a typodont that has the calculus in the lower right, and it's all going to match up. So no, you can't. You can't choose your own calculus removal teeth, and you can't choose your own calculus detection teeth either. You'll receive this ACF form, and all of the teeth that you're going to be working on are all written there for you. So
I tell the
it's an
students, Pat,
assignment.
I tell the students often that the good news is they aren't only experts in just one side. They've been taught to treat the full mouth, so it really doesn't matter right or left. Nobody's an expert in just one side. They can do it all.
That's right. And people, I've been told, can do mesials as well as distals, or distals as well as mesials, and even do third molars.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and we can say, spoiler alert, there are third molars on
I was
this.
going to say, great leadway on that. Yes.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
There are third molars, and it is expected, the patient does expect that you would be able to remove any calculus that they may have on a third molar. So, so you've got your calculus detection assignment, you've got your removal assignment, and now periodontal probing is the third assignment that you'll be given. Again, here, the teeth that you are assigned to probe are from the quadrant that you've been scaling. And you're assigned one anterior and one posterior tooth. Going to be taking 6 readings on each of these teeth, and you're going to be recording them in those little white boxes that are there. I will tell you that our examiners are calibrated such that they are using a probe, and if the tissue overlaps the millimeter reading on the probe, if it is inserted and the tissue overlaps the 3 millimeter line so that you no longer see it, our examiners are calibrated to indicate that reading as a 4. So you go up, if the line is covered, you go up to the next visible line. So that is just a hint on how our graders are calibrated. They grade under the same conditions that you work. They do exactly what you do. They use instruments that have been suggested that you use, but we've told you what we are using. And each for your examination, and every examination, it will be evaluated independently by 3 separate graders. They will go in, they will check all of the teeth for calculus detection. They'll check all of that. They'll check for the removal. They'll also be doing the probing. In the probing, there is a +1, -1 variation, which is pretty standard in recording probes. The scoring rubric. This is on the clinical. This is where the points come from. Like the CSCE, which was worth 100 points, the clinical is also worth 100 points. And this is how they're broken down. Calculus detection, again, remember I said it's 4 teeth, 4 surfaces. The math is easy. 4 times 4 is 16. So calculus detection is worth 16 points. If you miss a tooth or mismark a tooth, you will lose 1 point. Calculus removal, again, 1 mandibular quadrant assigned for scaling, 12 assigned key surfaces evaluated for calculus removal. Each one of those versions. You're scaling every tooth, every surface, but there are going to be 12 key surfaces per version that are going to be worth 5 points each. So that's going to total 66 points. But the rest of the surfaces in the mouth are also counted, and they are also evaluated. So that's an additional 6 points. When you look at this, of the 100 points, you can see that 72 points in this examination is focused on calculus removal. Periodontal probing, 2 assigned teeth, anterior, posterior, 6 measurements on each tooth. So 6 times 2 is 12. Periodontal probing is worth 12 of the 100 points. So in the scoring rubric, when graders are evaluating your performance, this is the rubric they use. These are how points are allocated. Your total possible point count is 100. And I hope you all get 100. So how do we evaluate hard and soft tissue trauma? It's post grading, and it's called penalty points. So those in the scoring rubric, they add up those 100 points. Once that has been done, they then will start looking at any errors that may occur, either minor or major. I want to be right up front and say that this is the exception rather than the rule. Shane will give you some information about some social media things, but it is not expected that you will incur hard to soft tissue trauma. But if you do, this is how it's graded. Let's go over to the left for soft tissue, or actually the scoring is the same. If you have a minor area of either soft or hard tissue, it's worth 1 point. You'll lose 1 point for a minor area of trauma. 2 points if there's 2, 3 points if there's 3. That is the same for both major and both minor. There are some situations where you may look at it as a candidate and see, they say it to me all the time when they're checking out, will you look at this and is this tissue trauma? It's this little white speck and whatever. It is expected that there is some manipulation in manipulating tissue. There is some resultant expectation of some marks on the gingiva. Some of them are totally acceptable. We call that expected manipulation, and it wouldn't be any point deduction at all. This is something that can occur. It's less forgiving on a typodont than it is on a patient. There's no saliva to wash over it, so it's more visible. This would be considered minor. Each of these there would be considered minor. If there is hard tissue, again, we're talking about line angles of teeth and whatever. If there is some, oh no, we're still here on soft tissue, minor soft tissue. Here's some examples of what it is. Again, this isn't going to fail you. A minor is worth 1 point. An accumulation, this on the other hand is a little bit different. This is major. You can see the extent of the tissue trauma so this
what I say here sometimes is that this isn't going to heal on its own. This now needs intervention. It's greater than 3 millimeters, as our rubric says, as far as how the penalty would be assessed between minor and major. So we definitely define it, and this obviously now needs additional care in order to put this patient back into a healthy position.
Absolutely. That's the simplest way of looking at it. If it needs post-treatment care, it would be considered something that would be major. If it's going to heal on its own, it would be considered minor. Here's some examples just so that you can see what major hard tissue damage on 20 distal.
Again, minor. Yeah, this is just those surface scratches on the simulated tooth.
Right, and I'm having a hard time looking at those. Seeing, I guess right in the distal, you can see scratches. Again,
there's your real obvious ones.
And you have to work a little hard to get this. You have to have your ultrasonic. Probably it's hard to do with hand scaling, I think. You got to be pretty good, pretty strong. It's more apt if it's going to happen to ultrasonics, and it's going to be ultrasonics that may be powered or a little too high.
Well, can you talk to me about that, Pat? The powering of the ultrasonic.
I always like to say that, again, these are great simulations. The product, the tissue is great. The teeth, the hard product is good, but they're not enamel. They're not as hard as enamel. You wouldn't, no matter what you were doing, if you were using an ultrasonic on something that's harder or something that's softer, you wouldn't be using the same powers. If you're going to be renting an ultrasonic and it isn't something that you've used before, it's equipment that's new to you, don't assume that it's going to perform the same way as the one that you're used to using. So you do what you do, and whatever. My recommendation is always to start lower and work your way up. If you start low on a power setting until you get used to the equipment itself and you get used to how it performs, if it's not working for you, then adjust it to whatever your clinical judgment says to adjust it to. But don't start high and go down. If you start high and get damaged, there's nothing you can do to erase that. So I say, which you probably should always be doing with a patient anyway, you don't know how much power you need until you try to take the deposit off. So try it. If it's not working, increase your power. But too much power can get you in trouble. Too little power is just going to make you work harder.
Well, Pat, is there an examiner that's there looking over my shoulder as I work, saying do or don't do any of these things?
No, the examiners are there in the clinic. They're looking for infection control violations or something like that. This is a product exam, not a process. We're not looking at what your speed is. We're not going to be telling you to make it any different. You're going to be doing your thing. You're going to be using the instruments that you want to use, how you want to use them. This is just a ahead of time recommendation. We know the product, and just a little word of advice. Not telling you how to do it or teaching you how to do it. It's just a word of advice. When you go into the clinic, this is who you're going to see. This is your patient. He'll look a little bit different. The mandible won't be in the mouth itself. You'll be putting that in. But this is your qualification, who has the amount of calculus that they need, who has and they have the calculus, they have it in the right place. They fulfill all of their requirements. And as I said before, their blood pressure is fine. They're not going to be biting your tongue. They're not going to be excusing themselves to go to the restroom. They're there. It's going to be attached to the chair, and you're going to be able to move this head back and forth and treat them as you would a patient.
So one thing, Pat, I want to quickly cover. Our friends have found this video here on YouTube, so most likely they have either seen or passed or watched this other video that we have that really did, like I mentioned, kind of take over our #1 spot, which is a candidate video. It is 2 candidates. They were graduates of 2024. They took their exam in the morning. We recreated their process in the afternoon. So you can see a full exam day in 4.5 minutes. And that covers everything that Pat's talked about today, from the time they walked into the clinic, showed their ID, headed to their operatory, meeting with the examiner, everybody getting on the same page before we start. Then those candidates are telling you as they do these treatments what's going through their minds. They are literally play by play telling you about their experience, why they took the ADEX exam. So take 4.5 minutes and invest in this video. I think it answers a lot of questions of what that exam did, but also helps ease a lot of nerves that you may have about what that really is going to look like. This will lay it out for you. Pat, I don't know if you've seen this one. We just published it a few weeks ago, but we have Betsy and Ivan this year. And Ivan, if there was an Oscar award, and Betsy as well, but if there was a nomination that his personality would just shine through on this, he did a fantastic job of really helping the next group of candidates taking the exam see what it's going to be like.
And I think the other thing that they did is they brought up, I mean, they weren't scripted, they brought up the things that bothered them. when they were taking the exam, and now they're reacting to it. So they've taken it, they took it in the morning, and now they're telling you, it's kind of like, oh, well, that wasn't so bad,
Yeah.
there's a reason that's the number one. I will say I think it takes the mystery out of what the day is going to be like. And if there's no mystery, then, you're not going to be as nervous. I think and they survived it here. I always say when I greet my second group, I said I had 11 or 15 or 18 or however many walk in, and every one of them left. So
we didn't lose one.
Everybody is going to survive this exam.
Well, there are a couple of tips, Pat, that you always like to go over that I find super helpful, particularly for those candidates taking this exam who aren't students. Always helpful for those who are students as well. But one of those things I wanted to confirm, you talked about that ACF form. Are we able to write on that worksheet back and forth with our pen or pencil? And I think that's a yes. I think you covered that. But if that pen or pencil or my instrument hits the floor, then what am I supposed to do?
Right. We talked about infection control, and this is where we get kind of a little iffy on infection control. And in some cases, it's almost a little cringeworthy. I always say, your PPE, yes, you're going to be dressed and you're going to be covered and you're going to be doing the eyes and the masks and the gloves and all of that. But if an instrument drops on the floor, or if you hit it and your air water syringe drops on the floor, or you're setting up, you don't need to wrap that whole operatory. We're not doing things that are wasteful. This is not a patient. But if you drop an instrument, you drop an air water syringe or something with a saliva ejector, if you were to pick that up and use it, that is a major infection control violation. And that's worth 100 points, minus 100 points. So that's the end of your day. So if that does happen, and it does happen, what you need to do is, one, acknowledge that it's happened, come up to one of us that's on the floor. There's probably going to be two of us on the floor all the time. And you're going to say, I dropped an instrument. I dropped a air water syringe. We're going to say to you, okay, if this were a patient exam, what would you do? And then what we're looking for you to do is to just describe back to us how you would handle it, if you would pick it up, how you would pick it up, what you would do with it, what would you have on your hands, where would you put it, would you wash your hands, would you re-glove, We want you to just tell us that whole scenario. And as soon as you do, we're going to say, okay, you can use that instrument. And you can go back, you don't even need to wipe it down, but you can use the instrument, or you can use the air water syringe. If you don't do that, that's a simple process to go through to be able to continue. If you don't do that and we observe it, then it's a violation. Can you take your pencil and pick it up and not have it wrapped and write on your ACF form? Yes, you can. So it's that type of infection control that we're not following. But what you can't do is take the ACF form, put it on the patient on the top of the chair as if that was the patient's chest. That's not acceptable. The ACF form has to be on the cart or someplace, not on what would be the patient's chest. So that's infection control. That is one of two ways of losing 100 points on this examination. And there's no excuse for it. If you drop something, call someone over, explain the process, you will be able to use it. If it breaks, that's when it's nice to have a second set of instruments, because if you can pick it up and use it, but if you've broken it, you can't. There's one other 100-point violation that, let's just talk about it quickly. We said that there was a uniform start. Everybody starts at the same time. And at the end, you may finish early, or it may go the 2 hours. But if it goes the 2 hours and the chief examiner says, it's 10 o'clock, the exam is finished, please put down your instruments. That's not a suggestion. It is an absolute, put down your instruments. Don't put an instrument, your hand, an air water syringe, a gauze square, or anything into that mouth. When the exam is finished, the exam is finished. If you continue, that is a violation of a time guideline. And that is another a potential for a 100-point penalty. So those are the two things that do not have to happen. It's simple to get around them. Don't pick up an instrument and use it without getting explaining the protocol. And when the exam is over, the exam is over. Whatever you were going to go in to try to get off one more spec of calculus that maybe could be worth 1 point or 5 points is not worth 100 points, losing 100 points. So those are your two violations. If you finish early, and I don't know if I mentioned that, you can, it's fine. You just will follow the same checkout process as you would if you went to the end of the 2 full hours. So there's on that ACF form, we ask that you write the finish time. I didn't get to it because I was a slowpoke on another section. There's a green box that has finish time. When the chief says it's 8 o'clock, you may begin, your finish time is 10 o'clock. Right back on that lower left green box, write in 10 o'clock. That's the time that you must be finished by. It may not be your finish time. You may finish a 9:45, but that's there as a guideline for you at what time you must be finished.
Pat, can you quickly address too on the finish time that we're all going to sync to the same time, whether that's on the clinic floor clock or the computers that may be nearby, but also that they're getting verbal cues of how much time remains at certain points.
You have 2 hours. There are clocks in the clinic. We try to calibrate those clocks, but we also request in any operatories that do have monitor screens that it's set to time so that you have a clock at each of your operatories. That's what we're going for. If not, we make sure that the clocks are close by and that you can see them. Remember, you cannot wear a smartwatch. You can have nothing that has a signal. You can't have a phone. I know if you're visiting, you need to bring it in because you don't have any other place to put it. It must be in the off position and it must be out of sight in a cabinet. Okay, so you can wear a regular watch, but no smartwatches. And hopefully you will have on your monitor at your operatory, there will be a time and then you have it to compare to when you need to be finished. Was there another part to that question?
No, that was it. Just that they would get a reminder. Is it 1 hour?
That's it. 3 reminders. It's a 2-hour exam. We like to, because you get in the zone and you're working, we like to give you, I don't want to call it a warning because that's sort of negative, a notification at the halfway mark. At 1 hour, we'll come around, the chief or the ETC will come around and say, you have 1 hour remaining. It's not for you to go, oh no, I only have an hour. It's, oh, I still have an hour. I'm only halfway done. Okay, so we'll do that. And the other time we'll try to give you a notification is at when you have 15 minutes left. And at 15 minutes left, again, I'm going to suggest to you that if you have not done your probing yet, which is probably one of the last things that you're going to do, put down your instrument from whatever you're doing, which is probably checking yourself for the 10th or 11th time, is put down your instrument and give that 15 minutes to make sure that your probing is complete and that you do have them recorded. That's worth 12 points. You don't want to sacrifice those 12 points. It is your responsibility to monitor your own time. It'll say that in the manual. And it may happen that we aren't able to give you those notifications. We've been doing this, we're now up for 6 years. I've never not been able to do it. We've been able to, maybe we're a minute or so late, but we're able to give you that 1 hour notification and that 15-minute notification. But it is ultimately your responsibility to monitor your own time. And it's plenty of time. 2 hours is absolutely plenty of time to scale 1 quadrant. And I always say, and I'll say it again today, enjoy that day, because never again in your professional life will you be able or given 2 hours to scale 1 quadrant. Never going to happen again. So there's plenty of time. Be efficient. Don't check yourself too many times, because that's when you get nervous. Just be efficient and work the way you normally do. Wherever you normally start there. It's not a day to try new things.
Do you want to cover the Q&A real quick?
There will be a Q&A scheduled for each clinical site, and it's usually the week of the exam. It's hosted by the chief, the ETC, and the school coordinator. I strongly urge all of you to attend the Q&A. If you're a student at the school, if you're a guest at the school, makes no difference. There's a lot of good information that's given out. The school provides information about what they are going to provide, where things are, how things are going to work. We'll tell you where to go. We're going to be going over schedules. We're going to be maybe asking you to be there that half hour ahead of time. And we'd like everybody to get the message. It's also a good time for you to ask questions. We're going to be delivering some information to you about the exam and the site specific, and so on the school coordinator, but it's a wonderful opportunity for you to ask questions of us. That's why we're there.
And then Pat, I'm going to cover one last thing here, which is also can be discussed in the Q&A, is anything you may hear on social media. There is never a good time to search how to pass this examination. Typically, the information out there is not accurate nor current. Pat and I have for years fought the bringing dull instruments or different kinds of rumors. If you hear anything, ask it at the Q&A. But you don't have to wait till then either. Ask your faculty. Pat and I work year round to make sure that we're trying to keep that information down. And right now, in the last couple of years, it's been fairly calm. There hasn't been a lot of false information. Social media wise, it's been more about the outfit of the day of what they wore to the exam than more details of how to pass. But still, it exists. It's a lot of old information. Just don't trust those resources. This is why we do these videos. In addition to why you've got faculty. But if you had any questions, Q&A would be that also that last opportunity to ask of something you may have heard.
And as long as Shana has brought up fashion, let me say that there is a section in the manual about what you should be wearing and what your clinical attire should be. It should be professional clinical attire. You should be wearing scrubs. It's not a day at the beach attire with a lab coat over it. So please, again, one of those nuggets that's in the manual that isn't covered other places, but professional attire is expected. And so in my last parting words to you, I want to say the most nerve-wracking time I think of this exam, it's not a fraction of what it used to be without having the patient drama, but the most nerve-wracking time is from when we hand you or you come into the operatory and you have all of your exam materials and you're getting set up. My advice to you is just do it quickly and efficiently. Let's get the exam started. Once the exam is started, you are in familiar territory. You are doing what you're used to doing, whether it be in clinic or whether it be in your office. So that 20 minutes, 15 minutes, if we can get you in and settled, get your equipment moved out and working, your instruments out, checked in, ready to go, and you get started, then the tension level goes. So be efficient on your check-in when you arrive. Be on time. Give yourself leeway. I think that's another thing that just makes you nervous. If you're rushed, it makes you nervous. And if you're unfamiliar, it makes you nervous. Today, we hope to get rid of some of the unfamiliar. We'll do the same thing at the Q&A to try to get rid of some unfamiliar, but the rushing is all on you. Leave yourself ample time to get there.
And then last but not least, when are you going to get your scores? You will get a text message that says your scores have been posted to your profile. So you don't have to continuously go back and refresh your profile. You'll get a text message that lets you know you can go check. So you should have those scores very quickly, but just know that that text message will come and that will prompt you to go check them. So Pat, this has been a lot of fun as always.
Can I just add one thing to those scores is if you happen to be at a site that's multi-day, the scores are not submitted until the end of the last day. So if you tested on Friday and people are testing on Sunday, nothing's being submitted until Sunday.
Yep. So Pat, anything else?
Got my list, checking it off.
All the things we want to say.
It's always fun, and it's always fun to see people out. Shana gets to see many of you who are current students on her live webinars at the schools. I get to see you out on the site, which I love. I get to see you in airports. I get to see you all kinds of places, and it's fun. And we appreciate the feedback that you give us. Most of the content is because you've asked for it, or you've asked us to change or include things. It's been great, and you have given us feedback that they are helpful, and we've chosen to believe it. So.
Yes.
Continue giving us a feedback. If you want more things to be included, let us know. I look forward to seeing you out on the road. Shana looks forward to seeing you at her live seminars. And thank you.
Thanks, Pat. We'll see you later.
Okay, have a good day, everybody.